Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Brandon Bradley, and I am the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Mancuso Show Management. I am new to this position, and I'm very excited to be working with all of you at our upcoming shows. And I'm also excited to be working with our Mancuso Show Management team on producing these events for you guys. Today, I'm here with Maria Tamaoka, whose business is Pinwheels, another a long-time exhibitor with Mancuso Shows. Maria is here and she's going to be telling us about her company and about the taupe fabric that over the years has been very popular with Japanese quilters. Good morning, Maria. Tell us about where you are located and when was your business established?
Good morning, Brandon. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I started my business actually in 1991. I know that makes me real old, but I was only 5 when I started the business, okay? So I started the business as a regular quilt shop, but my husband and I would go to Japan yearly, and there I would see these wonderful Japanese quilts and colors. So I came back to the US trying to make my quilts look that style, and it just couldn't be done with American fabric, US goods. So we were at the Tokyo Dome show back in 2000, I guess 2000. And at that time, the Japanese company Daiwabo was there. And so my husband spoke to them and said, how could we get this fabric to the United States? And they said, I don't know, basically, because they had never done that. So it was quite a huge process since they had never shipped to the United States. What we had to do was ship it to my relative's house in Japan. And from there, they shipped it to the United States. It took over 6 months because every single piece of fabric had to have its own visa. So it was like new for all of us, Sure. But it finally came, and the Daiwabo company said, wow, this woman is serious. And I was buying and buying and buying. And in 2001, we became the United States distributors of the fabric line.
Nice.
So we ship Japanese fabric to all over the US, the world, actually. We have customers in Africa, and those are both wholesale and retail customers. But when I go to shows, I just am retail, of course. And so I bring as much of the Japanese fabric as I can.
Awesome. So can you share with our audience, what is taupe?
Taupe is actually a color. In the United States, we might say something like, oh, it's a green blue or a red blue. And so that means that the underlying color would be red or green. But taupe is actually a brownish color, brown gray, and it depends on the light. So a real good taupe fabric would give you a different look. There are a lot of imitations, and that's why I say a good taupe fabric. So sometimes when I put together a quilt and I put like I'm going to say green next to a brown, it turns gray. But if I would have put it next to a pink, the green turns blue or something. And so it's just the way that it turns when it's around other fabric.
Nice. Okay. So I saw on your website that you have the Japanese taupe club. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I did that many, many years ago, and people loved it. So basically what it is that every month I send people 5 fat quarters of a different group of fabrics. So sometimes they're all blues, all 5 blues, 5 whites, 5 greens, because the beauty of taupe, or to make a true taupe quilt, it's not that you want like 3 yards of blue. You want 5 different blues to blend in. And that's the whole beauty of doing the taupe fabrics. So it's not just, I want 6 yards of something and make it all the same one background. What we usually do to make the Japanese quilts is like I would have 6 different whites, and I'm using white as a very loose term, different lights to make the quilt background, not just one.
Okay, nice. Are you primarily a quilt festival vendor, or do you have a brick and mortar store as well?
I had a brick and mortar store until COVID happened, and then we stayed home, and I said, you know what? I kind of like staying home which I shouldn't say that, should I? But I've also have become a long arm quilter. So I bought a long arm quilting machine.
Very
And
nice.
so, and the reason I did that mainly was that I'm real fussy about how quilts are quilted, especially my quilts. And because I'm trying to make them look traditional, I can do that on my own as opposed to have someone else do it for me. But I do customers' quilts as well.
Okay.
But I do a lot of quilt shows.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about your mailbox quilts, because I saw you have those as well.
That's a real fun project. A friend of mine, Glenda Shea from Liberty Homestead, and she's been a vendor even longer than I am, but she started when she was 2. We decided to pool our talent, our creativity. And so what we do is every month, no, not every month, take that back. We have a series. So far we've done 3 in the series. And what we do is Glenda designs 4 blocks and I design 4 blocks. Glenda does her quilt. What she does, she'll make my blocks with her fabric and I make her blocks with my fabric. So Glenda's fabric is a hand-dyed fabric. So her quilts look totally different than mine, but yet we have the same blocks. And it's just been a real fun thing to do. And we're on our 3rd series called Pumpkins, Mailbox Pumpkins. And they're just great quilts. And they're small. So it's small enough where people can actually finish them and start the next one.
I love that.
What we do, we ship them out weekly. So like every week for 5 weeks, you get 2 blocks. Now, if you were to buy my fabric, you would only get the taupe fabrics, but you would get 2 blocks for 4 weeks. And the 5th week, you get all the finishing, the borders, the binding, no backing though. And, we embellish the quilts. They're really fun to do.
It sounds very fun. I'll have to check it out.
Yes, do it.
I'm very new to the quilting world. That might
Sure.
be something that I might be able to handle.
Yeah, it's a fun project.
What's your favorite aspect about your business?
I really love the fabric. I love looking at the fabric. I love touching the fabric. I'm going to just back up a second and say the Japanese fabric, there's 2 types. There's the printed fabric,
Okay.
and then there's the woven fabric. And I love the woven fabric. I love the feel of it. I love the texture. And I love what it does when it's in a quilt. It doesn't make the quilt look flat. It really gives it a 3-dimensional look. So I really love the fabric. And I guess I love designing too, because, well, they go hand in hand. I have to see the fabric and then something pops in my head and I'm like, oh yeah, I have to do that.
So where do you get your inspiration for when you create a new quilt?
That's a good question. I don't know. I look around me. I think I look at the colors is what I do, and the colors of nature. So one of my first quilts I did with the Japanese fabric was called Moss Garden, because at that time they had given me tons of green fabrics. So with the green fabric, I decided, being in Japan, going to all the temples and everything, we would see the moss that was growing and the vegetation. And so that's where my inspiration was. I'll be honest with you, I try not to do very complicated quilts because I want people to be able to finish them and enjoy them. And that's what I try to do. And I think that the spark is with the fabric and the colors of the fabric.
Absolutely. Yes. So over the past year and a half dealing with the pandemic, tell us how you have conducted business.
I've been mainly, of course, just doing online is the main thing.
So you have an online site?
Online site. And then Glenda and I started the mailbox quilts, which has been a real success. I get phone calls after phone calls because people miss me at shows. They're used to seeing me at shows or emails. And so I try to answer all of those with people. And that's how I've been doing the business, basically.
Very nice. So when you are not quilting and picking out fabrics, what do you like to do?
I have a new puppy.
Aw, what kind of puppy?
I have a collie.
Oh, very nice.
my collie, this is my third collie. Her name is Sable. She can't be here now because she would be a real pest. She's 8 months old.
Oh, wow.
And I just have to brag, she's part of the Weatherwax lineage, which all of us old people that ever watched Lassie, that was the Lassie line. So my husband and I are kind of crazy people. Sable was born in Kentucky. And so we literally got in the car like 2 a.m, drove to Kentucky all night. And we're in Connecticut, so it's like a 15-hour drive.
Mhm.
We stopped at rest stops. We had our masks on. We had our gloves on. We only ate what we provided in our car, picked up Sable, brought her home, and, it was like a 30-hour trip. But I love her. I love her to pieces. And, she's been wonderful for me.
That's great. Well, congrats on your new puppy.
Thank you.
So how did you get into quilting? I know you said you started when you were young, but what drew you to the
Sure.
quilting world?
Actually, I used to be a teacher in Illinois, and I have a handicapped son who was a real challenge for me. And a friend of mine had started quilting, and I thought, I wonder if I could do that. My mother was a seamstress, but sewing clothes has never been my thing. I got burnt out in middle school when we had to make these horrible shifts that fit no one and ugly fabric, the whole bit. So my friend showed me this quilt she was working on. I thought, I wonder if I could do that. So when Michael, my son, was little, he never slept. And so I would be up until like 3 a.m. quilting, because that kind of, helped me out with the whole situation. And then it just grew from there and grew big from there, because it was like, you couldn't stop. I couldn't stop doing it. When we moved to New York, I stopped teaching and, did really quilting full time.
Okay. And what kind of teacher were you?
I was a music teacher. So my degrees are in music education. And I was like the thesis short of a PhD in music.
Wow.
And then, so it was music education.
Very nice. Okay. And what kind of advice would you give to a new quilter or a younger quilter that's just looking to get their feet wet into the quilting business? Some advice.
I think my advice is, and let me back up. When I started quilting like in 1985, 86, we didn't have everything that we have now with rulers and books and so on. We had graph paper and pencils. And my advice to people is to learn the basics. I think so often classes are geared towards projects, and really they should be geared towards techniques, because once you have the technique and know how to figure out how to make a 9-inch block or a 12-inch block, you can make anything. You don't need a pattern for every 9-patch quilt out there, because, oh boy, I'll probably get in trouble with my fellow vendors, but a 9-patch block is a 9-patch block. It's just that fabric changes in there. So I really think learning basics, techniques is much more important than learning projects.
I agree. I feel like with almost anything, just starting out with the basics and starting out from scratch and at the bottom and you work your way up is most important.
Yeah. It's like music. You didn't learn how to play a sonata until you learned how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb,
Exactly. So thank you, Maria, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at the Pennsylvania National Quilt Extravaganza on September 16th through the 19th. Thank you so much. And coming up next, we have our interview with Anna Buzzolino. Diana is going to be hosting that video at 2:00. So definitely stay tuned for that one. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you, Brandon, and the Mancusos.